Yes, I know. They would keep it going.
It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of the Enfield Select Board to order on May 19th, 2025. And one point I've been asked to make is that as the minute taker is going to be working from a recording, we must state our names every time we speak. Questions on that? Excellent. So, first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 5th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve as printed.
And your name will be?
Oh. Good God. That's- Right, yeah, no, I know, I'm gonna forget 5 more times. My name is Catherine Stewart, and I make a motion to approve as printed, although I think Elisa's taking notes of the motions, aren't you? Yeah.
Tracy Young, I'll second.
Okay, any comments? Corrections?
Excellent.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. One abstention from
Alice.
Alice. Thank you. Okay. Next up, the 2023 audit review.
So Tim Green, our auditor, is online to present the final audit to the select board, and we did invite the budget committee tonight. So we warned them as having a meeting, but I don't think we need to open a meeting, do any of that. I just wanted to make sure we warned it so everybody knew they would be here. And with that, I will turn it over to Tim Green to go through our 2023 audit.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Good evening. Is this working? Everyone hear me good?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Tim Green, as you said, with Robertson Green, here to present the audit for the 2023 annual financial report for the town of Enfield. I think as we'll get to with some of these comments I have, we'll kind of explain why it's so much later than we have in the past. But I will still start with what I normally run through, just what the point is, and hit some of the financial highlights before we get into answering some questions I would assume you'd have. So first things first, for those who are looking at the audit report, page 1, this is what we're hired to do. We're hired to give an opinion on the financial statements of the town themselves. The town reports multiple opinion units, and so despite those findings that we'll discuss, we were able to still give the town a clean opinion on their financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2023. Your major opinion units this year were your governmental activities, which is the first 2 exhibits you'll see. You had multiple major funds, and then you have one remaining aggregate remaining fund column, if you will. That's a total of all your non-major funds. The opinion letter basically details what the responsibility of the auditor is versus what's the responsibility of management and the town as a whole. And it also details the required supplementary information that we also give you an opinion on, and the supplementary information that the town presents as well that we've also looked at. 2023 was a single audit, which means the town expended more than $750,000 in federal grants. So you were required to have a single audit on what is considered your major program. And we'll get to that too. There's the back section. There's additional things that you would not have seen in past audits related to the single audit. So from there, I will go skim through the management's discussion analysis. This is presented by the town itself. I only provide input to make sure that the financial data is consistent with the rest of the report. Beyond that, there's specific guidelines within the Governmental Accounting Standards Board's requirements on what goes in and what should not be in there. And so I generally will just kind of give a brief purview of that to make sure that you're not the town's not adding unnecessary information. Clear and concise is kind of the goal that you would strive to for this document. So beyond that, so getting to page 10, which is exhibit 1 and 2, these are your governmental activities. This is full accrual basis. So this is where the town reports its long-term debt as well as its capital assets, and other long-term liabilities such as your net pension liability and your other post-employment benefit liability. At the very bottom, I'll point out that the town's total net position for the year ended December 31st, 2023 was just over 17 million. Of that, it's made up of multiple portions. You have primarily you have net investment in capital assets, which represents your total assets less the related liabilities, such as long-term debt used to acquire those assets. You have smaller amounts for restricted for endowments, your non-expendable portion and your expendable portion. And then you have about $1 million in other purposes, which represents library as well as other restricted balances. You can see your remaining unrestricted position is about just over 4 million. Comparing to the past 4 years or 3 years before that, this is about an increase of 400,000 from the year before in that unrestricted total. It's $1.5 million increase in the total net position, but a lot of that does relate to capital asset additions. Your non-expendable portion generally remains consistent, as well as the expendable portion of those endowments. And your other restricted position is relatively consistent as well. It was 4 years ago, it was about 850,000. Now it's up to about 1 million. So exhibit 2 on page 11, this is again on a full accrual basis. This is a statement of activities. It's presented in the format where you have your functions, your expense functions, and then the town summarizes their revenues that can be directly tied to those expenses, such as charges for services for government, general government. Charges for services in this instance does include motor vehicle permits, as well as charges from program income, if you will. You have some small operating grants and contributions, and then you had a larger, of course, capital grant contribution. You had, your ongoing water project that started or had really was ramping up in 2023. And then, of course, you have general revenues, primarily property taxes. Those are raised for the benefit of the town as a whole, to use to support the town as a whole, and they're not targeted to any specific governmental function. That's why it's a general revenue. Other taxes, other grants, and those other grants primarily are your rooms and meals and other type of grants like that. And then you have a miscellaneous income. So you can see your total general revenues of just about 6.6 million. And again, your beginning net position of 15,734,000 with an increase of about 1.5 million, a minor correction of the prior year's financials of 17,000, ended the year at the 17,260,000. Your next set of statements, exhibits 3 through 6, are the governmental fund statement. So this is on a modified accrual basis. This is current resource based. So it basically is saying your activity from January 1st to December 31st, and then a short time period beyond that. You can see that total assets for the general fund was about 8.5 million, and total assets for the town, which is the far right column, for all its governmental funds was almost 16 million, just under 16 million. Below that, the total liabilities for the general fund was 5,662,000, and the total liabilities for all governmental funds of the town was 6.4 million. The town has some deferred inflows of resources, which primarily it represents deferred revenue for taxes that have not been collected within 60 days, and therefore the town defers that because it's not available to pay those current liabilities. And then the total fund balance you can see for the general fund, the year ended December 31st, 2023, had a total fund balance of 2.3 million. Of that, just under 2 million was unassigned. And then you had some smaller amounts for the $300,000 for assignments represents encumbrances. 80,000 for committed amount would represent additional commitments related to town meeting vote or other upper level restrictions, if you will. And then non-spendable fund balance, about 40,000, represents the tax deeded property that's held for resale. Exhibit 4, this is a crosswalk between the two accounting standards. So you have your Exhibit 1, which is full accrual, and you have Exhibit 3, which is modified. This exhibit right here explains the differences essentially. So it shows you that you add the capital assets, that you add long-term liabilities, and so on. It's pretty, hopefully it's very self-explanatory. I'll quickly move on to Exhibit 5. This is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So again, it's column is by major fund. A newer GASB standard has required financial statement preparers to include a column if a fund either moves from a major to non-major or from a non-major to major. The determination is strictly quantitative, meaning it's just adding up all your assets, adding up all your liabilities, and saying if any one fund represents 10% of the total, it becomes a major fund. So it's not unusual to see a change year to year depending on what's going on in a fund. For example, the water fund obviously had over $1 million in capital outlay for a project, so that that probably bumped that was probably the main factor for bumping it up to major fund. They're all audited the same. It's just a matter of where they're presented within your financial statements. But I did want to point that out because there's a lot more columns this year than there has been. First column on the left, again, is the general fund. You can see total revenues, 7.2 million. Total expenditures, just over 6 million, resulting in an excess of revenues over expenditures of about $1 million. You have other financing sources and uses, transfers in and transfers out. Primarily transfers out go to your capital reserve funds or other funds to supplement their services. You had a small debt issue and resulting in your net change in fund balance of just over 600,000. So you can see you started the year about 1.7 million and ended the year at 2.3 million. Again, your other major funds, the TIF district, you can see they started the year at 1.8 million, ended at just over 2 million. And your expendable trust funds decreased by about 100,000 from 2.5 to 2.4 million. Exhibit 6 is another example of the explaining the difference between the two bases of accounting. This is explaining the difference between your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So it's saying what's the revenue in the full accrual and what's the revenue in modified accrual. Same thing with disbursements, repayment of your debt, for example. That's a debt service expenditure on the general fund, but it's just a reduction in a liability on your full accrual basis. So it is explaining the difference there. And then finally, Exhibit 7 is your budgetary exhibit. This is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in unassigned fund balance. The difference between the budgetary basis and GAAP is detailed within the notes, but primarily it has to do with how encumbrances are shown. On the budgetary basis, your encumbrances are reflected within this actual figure. So any encumbrances rolled forward to the next year are included in the actuals, whereas any encumbrances from the previous year reduce the actual total, so that you get a true picture of the budget results. So you can see here in that far right column is your positive or negative variance column. Total revenues had a positive variance about 240,000. Total expenditures had a positive variance of just under 200,000. So you had a total positive result in your budget statements of about just over 400,000. And as well, your other financing sources had a positive result of about just almost 100,000. So you can see your net change in fund balance. The first column on the left was a negative 175. That represents the amount that the town voted at either town meeting or the board used to reduce the tax rate. So you were on the budget basis, you were expecting a loss of 175,000 if all things worked out exactly how you planned it. Your actual column in the middle, you can see that you had an increase of 358,000 in your fund balance. When you have an increase or decrease in fund balance, between the two classifications, it comes out of unassigned fund balance. So you can see that you actually had a decrease in non-spendable, which added to your unassigned fund balance. So you started the year just over 2 million in unassigned and end the year at about 2,375,000. Anytime a major fund is also a budgeted fund, such as the water fund, in this case, you are required to provide a budget to actual schedule for that as well. So you can see here the results. Total revenues came in under budget by about 40,000, and total expenditures came in over budget by about 68,000 for that fund. As well, you have large deficiencies of revenues under expenditures because of the way long-term debt is reported. Primarily the difference, you can see that negative 1.175 million versus the just over $1 million of income of the long-term debt coming in. Basically, it's just the matter of matching and some drawdowns not being requested by year end. So you had the expenditures, but the drawdowns come in 2024. So by the time the project is over, you should see it matching. My assumption would be 2024, you'll see more long-term debt issued than expenses to match up that gap. But you can see the net change in fund balance for the water fund is a decrease of 80,000, leaving them ending with an ending fund balance of just under 300,000. For the water fund, that fund balance has been decreasing every year since 2021. It started to decrease. Again, portion of the 80,000 can be attributed to the project, which will be expected to be made up in 2024. But there is still some differences in the revenue coming in and the current operating expenses going out. Exhibit 9 is your TIF district. Again, it's a budgeted fund. You can see it's budgeted for debt service. The actual taxes received, of course, have been greater than the budgeted amount because you're collecting that additional tax allocating that tax for future capital improvements for that district, of course. So you can see that you have a fund balance ending of just over 2 million, as I pointed out earlier. From there is fiduciary funds. This represents funds held by the trustees of trust funds for private purposes or custodial purposes. Custodial would be for other agencies such as a school district, whereas private purpose would be held for the town, except that they only benefit a specific subset of town population. It's not a source of funding that can be used by everyone. Just a general example of that would be a scholarship fund. Only a student could receive a scholarship fund. The rest of the town wouldn't be eligible for it. That makes it a private purpose. Exhibit 11 on page 20 is just a statement of additions and deductions for those fiduciary funds. So you can see the activity and the minimal change in net position. I'm not going to highlight anything within the notes unless I have questions, of course, but they're designed to discuss the town's accounting policies and presentation, as well as any major balances, what gives further detail within it. So it should be able to answer any reader's questions in a general sense of what makes up those larger balances, those material balances, if you will. So I'm going to jump now. Sorry, I know there's a lot to go through, so I apologize for how much there is. I'm going to jump to page 44. These are required supplemental schedules. And the first two, there's 4 of them. The first 2 are for the pension liability. This information, I'll let you get to there. This information is provided by the state of New Hampshire retirement system. And the town is required to present basically a rolling 10-year schedule of these balances. So again, it's all also available on the state of New Hampshire Retirement's website as well under their GASB reporting. There is a large report that details every single subdivision, if you will, that's in the system, what their liabilities are. And then the second 2 exhibits 14 and 15, starting on page 46. This is for other post-employment benefits liability. This represents the liability that the Government Accounting Standards Board determined about 10 years ago now, is earned by employees of the town and its retirees by essentially what's considered implicit earnings. As you work for the town, you are in a pooled health insurance program. When you leave, you have any employee would have the ability to be on COBRA through the same program. Now, even though the town is not contributing to that hypothetical cost, the employee is earning it as they work. And so GASB has always has for the last 10 years has required government entities to determine what that liability represents. So the town gets its two pieces that the town uses. They have a portion that comes from the retirement system itself, the state retirement system. Through 2011, there was a medical subsidy, so the state reports that portion for each town and school district. And then the town also has to hire an actuary to determine the portion that's just relates to its own health insurance program and its own census, if you will, of its employees. And that accounting is done every 2 years with updates within the updates on the second year if there are significant changes in interest rates or health insurance premiums or things like that. And finally, as far as financial exhibits go, exhibit 16 on page 49. These are all your non-major funds. So you can see your sewer fund is non-major, library, conservation, grants, and then basically multiple capital projects you have going on. And then your permanent fund, which primarily represents perpetual care. On exhibit 17, just point out, you can see the changes in revenues and expenditures. And point out that the sewer fund is still in a deficit. And again, they have been in a deficit for a number of years now. Up until 2023, they were reducing that deficit. But in 2023, I think with the capital outlay that you could see about 36,000, as well as revenues coming in under their expenditures, they did have a reversal there in an increase in their deficit. From there, you have general fund exhibits, exhibit 18, 19, and 20. They are more detailed breakdown of budget to actual for revenues, and then the same thing for expenditures. So you can see where your significant positive or negative variances were in both revenues and expenditures. On exhibit 19, the expenditure report, you can see a column for beginning of the year encumbrances and ending of the year encumbrances as well, which gets you to exhibit 20 on page 54, which is a nice summary of the changes in your unassigned fund balance. So again, kind of already highlighted, but you started the year just over 2 million. You used 175,000 to reduce your tax rate. You had a revenue surplus of 280,000, an unexpended balance of appropriations of 250,000, resulting in a budget surplus of over 500,000, and a minor decrease in non-spendable resulted in an increase in unassigned of 9,000. And that's how you get to your ending 2.3 million unassigned fund balance. Single audit, you can see on exhibit 21, page 55. These were all the grant expenditures the town had during the year. We did our single audit on the capitalization grants for drinking water state revolving fund, of which the town has expended just over $1 million. We are required to audit either 40% or 20%, depending on whether or not the town is considered a high or low risk under the terms of a single audit. The town was a high risk because not having had a single audit in the past 2 years, that's one of the first criteria to becoming a low risk, is if you have a single audit year after year and your auditors are not finding significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. That's how a town would become a low risk auditee. But again, the town having not had a single audit in a number of years, that was the first step, and that you're basically by default not a low risk auditee. Although the revolving loan grant is actually a loan, it is still a federal program, and therefore it still falls under the category of requiring the single audit. I'm sure that might be a question for someone. Sometimes these programs are a mix of grant and loan, but the federal government does want all federal loans in this instance to be considered in the same pool as grants. So it all counts towards that calculation. With a single audit comes 2 more opinion letters. Similar to that first opinion, we are now giving you an opinion on basically 2 higher levels of auditing. The government auditing standards, which is required when you fall under what's considered a yellow book audit, which means you are required to follow the federal guidelines, but it's not a it's not a program audit, it's an audit of the whole town under governmental auditing standards. And then the next opinion is the opinion for your compliance with uniform guidance, which is a single audit. So that's where we're saying, okay, we audited your major program, which again was that water project program, and we give an opinion on that. So we did 3 opinions this year. Lastly, now we'll get to these findings that we did give the town this year. As far as you have 2 sections that we provide findings on. You have your financial statements, and then you have your federal awards. So for the financial statements, we had a material weakness and a significant deficiency. The material weakness was the fact that when we came in to begin the audit in February of 2024, we were able to do a portion of our work, but it was clear that the financial statements or the financial records themselves were not ready for audit, essentially. So we met with management, met with staff, and said, okay, we need to make sure that you're reconciling your general ledger totals to the treasurer's report. So the treasurer is reconciling monthly, but the next step needs to be that within the general ledger system, those balances are reconciled as well, and then you should be at the same point between the treasurer and the accounting software. It was, I think, as we noted, I think there was many factors. One was which training of the employees responsible for the reconciliation, as well as I'm not here to provide excuses or anything, but there was also a transition of office space, there was a transition of staffing, and so on. So there were many factors that led to, I believe, this process not being achieved. But one thing I wanted to make sure I point out is that it certainly should be always something that is monitored internally through your management staff, and as well as the board should be periodically monitoring that these processes are actually in place and working. The second finding on the financial statements, they all kind of go hand in hand. Once you stop reconciling your bank account, you're kind of gonna see a snowball effect with everything else. So there were various other accounts at year end that took additional time by staff to ultimately reconcile and present for audit. So the reason why the town did receive a clean opinion is because the town took the steps to get their financial picture back into place it needed to be. It just took longer time, and obviously it was not done on a timely basis in the first place, which you need to do in order to make management decisions, of course. Do you want me to stop here and answer questions, or move on to the federal findings?
I have questions.
Okay.
Shock. Is that okay, John?
Sure. By all
Um,
means,
Tim, so.
giving your name first.
Yes, oh gosh, wait, ready? I'm Kathy Stewart. And I'm not used to having to say my name over and over. So, in terms of going forward, Tim, would you recommend a specific cadence for monthly check-ins? Like, we used to get monthly reports and it would be an agenda item, and they've kind of moved down under informational. Is there activity that would be good, say, monthly versus quarterly for us to do as a board, since we aren't involved in operations day to day? Or
I think
Yeah,
that would be I think that'd be probably, I'd say yes in the short term. Long term, I think if the board is seeing, okay, I think the primary thing is town manager, assistant town manager indicating literally on the face of a reconciliation that it's been looked at and when in time, and then the board could see that that's happening. I don't know that you need after that point if it's beneficial, but it's more of a decision as far as like what level do you want to be monitoring that as well. You do have a responsibility, of course, to periodically check in, multiple times a year. I'd say, okay, where are we at with our cash? Are we finding issues with the reconciliation process? Are we, where are we at? What's the status of that? But hopefully that's answering your question.
Yeah, I can add a little bit more of that. I've already been working with Chris Ellen, our new payroll and AP clerk that does the books and the reconciliation. And we are going to be giving you guys regular updates on where we're at pushing forward. And then, we'll be getting caught up, and we're we're gonna give you a lot more robust monthly financial statement that we can either go through as part of the agenda or give you guys as informational items. That would be up to you, but it's gonna be a lot more robust with a lot of that information in it, so you can see where we're at all times.
Is there, I mean, so I can read the reports, but I know I went to school for it. Is there an opportunity here to do some kind of, with the new software, some kind of dashboard so we can get a quick snapshot so we can say, yes, the reconciliation is done. These items are outstanding. This is our current cash position.
Yes, the new software
Okay.
actually comes with a dashboard that's up to date hour to hour. So you guys will be able to see it at all times, but we still want to prepare a financial report that comes to you. We'll make it a lot more simple than just a bunch of numbers on a sheet. We'll want to do that. And then we're also going to be looking at more than likely monthly, but at least every couple months or so, giving you some sort of manager type report from the finance department and ourselves of where we're at, what we're looking at, the things we're watching, so we can highlight those things for you. So we'll be really working over this next year to increase that monthly financial report.
Other comments, questions from the board?
Yeah, I think this is
Alice,
Alice.
thank you.
This is Alice.
Thank you. Yeah,
I think this sounds good. I think the conversation piece will be important, rather even like in addition to, or not rather than, but sending the reports and sharing it as part of the packet, but then like making sure that there's an intentional conversation about it. At least more frequently in the beginning, so we can all start to move forward together.
good point.
This is Tracy. You had said that none of the new software package is scheduled until 2026. Is that correct?
Yes. We'll be working on a report before then, and you'll be getting monthly reports moving forward on where we're at. We're still catching up 2024. It's, with a lot of work to get 2023 done. We're almost done with that. We'll keep you up to date exactly where we're at.
Your notes had said that you'd hope to summarize that by this summer.
Yes.
And at that point, you'd be able to move on to the reports that you're speaking of?
Yeah, we'll be working on those. They'll start to grow throughout the year. I can't give you an exact date when the full thing will be done, but we'll start getting you more and more robust reports soon.
Because we used to get them and like you'd be running down through if you were looking at it and be like, that doesn't make sense. And you'd realize that, say, a bond payment has the principal and the interest, and you realize they were both probably allocated to the same line instead of being split. So there are things that we could all be doing just as a second set of eyes. I think it's more of a team effort in my view. So getting those reports like.
Well, we want to give you a lot more than revenue and expense reports.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're not super exciting and I don't think everyone's gonna read all of them. I'd rather have a summary that's more useful, but I think in the interim, just starting to get those again, so maybe we can be putting our eyes on it to give it another layer of care.
Comments, questions from the public? Sir, your name?
Dan Kiley, you're taking questions on the financials themselves. Question, have we yet written off the loss on the trustee of the trust funds from 10 years ago? And if not, when are we going to do it? Because it does not appear from what I see in the audit that it was done this year. Because if it had, it would have hit the unassigned fund balance.
So I recall this from the past, and I needed to clarify after the fact. The town has always been reporting the market value of those. So essentially, you're recording a very little balance for those specific funds because their market value is minimal. So it has been written off, if you will, through a loss in over the time. Essentially, when it occurred, that year took the brunt of it. But they have been reporting at market value, and whatever that is at this point is built in the loss of those funds.
I don't think that's true.
No,
Yeah,
that's not.
But in the
correct.
financials, your MS9 reports the cost basis still, but in the financial statements, you're reporting market value.
right, but at
I know-
some point, there was a loss.
Yeah.
and I don't believe the loss was ever recognized anyplace.
Not on the MS9, it hasn't. I would agree with that. But within your financial statements, you've always been reporting market value. So as soon as that value of that share of stock dropped to whatever it is, you recorded a loss of fair value.
Well, because the instrument was a mortgage, though,
Yeah.
I don't think, but it wasn't real. I don't know a nicer way to say it. I think we've never captured it in a way that's adequate, because you can say, oh, we have X amount of,
Right.
in financial instruments for this fund. But then when you go, there's no cash behind
There's
it.
no cash behind
There's
it.
no cash behind it. And we've never done that. It's not right.
Let's see.
I don't know.
Otherwise we wouldn't sit in every one of these meetings and wonder how much money we had available.
And there was also a partial recovery that's never been accounted for.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
it gets accounted for when it comes in.
That might be
we
a
were
question of how the
recognizing
trustee
the
were
income, but never
reporting
the
it.
original loss.
That's right.
Then if they need help reporting it or something, I think we've got to
The,
do this work.
The note taker, of course, is having a nervous breakdown. at this point.
Right.
Yes, this is true.
That's why I started with Dan Kylie.
Thank you, Dan.
So
Kate.
I don't think we're gonna resolve this point right now. I think we best move on.
Let our
Sir,
auditor
you had a
continue.
question, name?
Dave Buffet, also on the budget committee. The, this is quite late for a 2023 audited report. And I know it's not available for the upcoming year on January 1. But what time can we expect the audited report for next year?
We'll be working on that. We're trying to finish up reconciling 24, and then we can get the auditors in here. So
Sir,
Hi, Dan Regan. First of all, I thought 2023 was very well managed. I thought we had a realistic budget, strong management, resulted in budget surplus, so nice job there. Our fund balances look good. My concern, however, is with the material weakness and the significant deficiency, as well as two other less serious lapses. And in each of these, what we point out to, and if people haven't read these, I would encourage them to do so. What we point out to the management response is we have a new employee that is much more highly trained in bookkeeping and accounting. However, the only reason we have a new employee is because we had the issue with the cybersecurity in November of 2024. So if we hadn't had that issue, we'd still kind of be in the same situation. So it seems to me we have a management control issue. And I agree that the additional reporting is a good thing, a very good thing. But what are we gonna do about management controls? How do we improve that? What's the process to improve that?
on the training of employees, making sure that they're getting what they do. Yeah, we had an employee that was struggling. We were trying to get them trained up to where they would go. And we had a bunch of things. I don't want to make excuses either, but we had a significant delay because of our software that was not allowing us to reconcile in the computer program. We got that done, but we need to continue with training. We've been sending the person we have now to training. We're making sure that we're working on getting 2024 caught up, and then we're going to be doing monthly reconciliations. That would be.
And are we confident that we have the managerial understanding to oversee this situation? Because we can train those employees, but if we don't know what we're managing towards, then we have a financial accounting issue. We could continue to have so.
No, I believe we do. We've had really good financials up until this 2023 year when we had these major problems.
Okay. Does the auditor have any further comments on this issue other than what was in the report?
Yeah, I think the big point to be had is management does, I agree, the management has very much so has the ability to be monitoring this. And I think that was the gap was when someone was struggling that wasn't caught in time, basically wasn't caught in time to prevent future errors. And I think this was in place before you had your event. I think the town was aware, and I think they were basically starting to try to figure out what was going on with reconciliation, why the process wasn't being done, and so on. And I think it kind of culminated as well. But that's not, me speaking on the town's behalf, of course.
So I would encourage the select board, I guess, in addition to getting those additional reports, find a way to check in from time to time would be my recommendation to make sure that we do have the managerial controls necessary.
You make very good points. Thank you.
John.
Eric?
Eric Russell, also addressing that, I believe this year, did we not change the RFP for the auditors to include an audit of our processes?
Internal controls.
Yeah.
Internal
we'll be
controls. So I think that's gonna be a big piece of it, is having the auditor look at our internal controls and send us a report on that, which I think will help address exactly what you're.
That's a good point.
Hopefully.
John.
Katie?
From outside.
I'm Kate. And just going back to addressing the internal controls, Dan and I have been beating this internal controls drum to death for years. I don't know why we couldn't seem to get a quote with internal controls before, but I'm willing to die on that hill at this point. Because we've been asking, we have to have it, but I will tell you personally that I've already asked for non-public. We can't have some of the discussions in public, and I wrote an email before this after reading the draft report. But I personally intend to have a discussion about what we can do for some of those, kind of key touch points with our employees in a way that's fair, that protects the town, but also, I want to disclose that I've asked for that and I intend to follow up.
I do.
Okay. Are we done, folks, with this topic?
Look.
Thank you.
The
I
federal-
think it's one.
Get a little more.
He's not.
It's not done.
Oh, he's got more to talk
He's got
about?
federal grant stuff.
Oh, well.
Two more, two more points. So your federal award findings, again, these findings relate to the specific program that we tested, not all federal awards. You can see section 3, page 64. We have unsigned manifest. That's an example of it's an example of a monitoring control. And again, there are multiple levels of expenditure controls. All towns have strong controls of expenditures, in general statement. However, if you have a policy that requires manifests that include all disbursements to be approved, the town couldn't at that time couldn't provide us with 2 of the 10 that we were looking at. So that is a finding that we had to comment on. And then unrecorded deposits. These were deposits for this grant program, but obviously basically ties into the cash reconciliation process. Obviously, if you're not reconciling a cash account, you're not capturing those ACH deposits necessarily timely or at all, which was one of the issues with reconciling the cash. There were certainly a number of unreported deposits because they go right into the bank account. They don't flow through the office as cleanly as, say, like a tax collector deposit or something of that nature. And so for this grant, there were 3 reimbursements that were received by the town, but were not recorded at the time. They were since recorded as the town caught up and made all the required adjustments to get it back to a point where we could audit it. But obviously during the year, they weren't recorded. And so you didn't really have a good picture of where that program was. Those were the federal award findings. So if there's any questions on those, I'm happy to answer those as well.
No questions? Comments?
I'd like to make one comment. So I'm Kate. And I think that even though 2024 as, a year is finished operations wise and we're doing reconciliation, I think some of these findings, like the finding where we're not prepared to start, which is a major, I think can be eliminated. I expect we're gonna see some findings still, because we're gonna have some cleanup, but I think our 2025 goal should be to get back to no findings. We worked very, very hard to eliminate all of our findings, and I take it really seriously, and we knew we were getting findings when we knew things went sideways, but I think the goal for 2025, that, and I think it's realistic, is we should be able to clean up 2025 and take it home.
We're good?
As good as we're
I
gonna
think
get.
so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Been very
My pleasure.
informative.
Any
Let's
other
do this.
questions throughout the year, you can always reach out to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Take care.
Okay. Next up, we have board report. Alice?
Yeah, so Heritage Commission and Eva are meeting this week. They have not met since.
Eric?
Let's see, so the planning board had a good meeting. We had an initial conceptual hearing around the Laramie Farms potential development. That conceptual hearing will continue at the next one. So if people are interested, I'd encourage you to watch that video and then consider attending the next meeting. And then we did a little
Can I
bit,
ask a quick
yeah,
question?
sure.
How would you characterize the progress that,
I was gonna ask.
As far as the plans that they're presenting,
yeah,
I'd say they're very far along development wise. I mean, they still have a lot of things to do, like I don't believe they have the driveway permit yet.
mhm,
So there's very clear hurdles they still have to overcome, but
Yeah.
they're definitely moving from a planning perspective, they're moving forward.
good,
Thank you.
good, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry to
so
interrupt.
that's all right.
Just something else you want to add?
No, just then we talked a little bit about the HOP grant, and the meeting we had on the Saturday session and stuff. So,
The chair has nothing to report.
There's nothing new from the Energy Committee. We haven't met yet this month.
Kate?
Hey, I'm Kate. Conservation has not met since the last time we met, but I just want to remind everybody that they spend a lot of time on Class 6 roads. And so, unless they decide that they're going to stop focusing on Class 6 roads, even though they already made a decision, it might be of interest to join us on June 5th for our next meeting.
Thank you.
Can I just?
Shirley?
Something that's kind of related. The library is going to have a special program on the common room on June 3rd at 5:30. It will be presented by a biologist from the Loon Preservation Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It'll be very interesting.
That's it for board reports. Next up, we have the town manager's report.
Before you go there, can I say something related to the boards?
Certainly.
So, it appears to me we don't have a representative from the select board, on the zoning board, and I'm sure there's a good reason for that. But I thought, and we had a discussion of the zoning board last week, that it might be of interest to the select board that once a year or as needed, somebody come in from the zoning board and say, hey, here's what's going on in our world.
Mhm.
Here's what we're working on. There's been some interesting things, including fees. We talked about, we're looking at the rules of procedure and taking another look at those. So I don't know if that would be of interest to the select board. Perhaps at the next meeting, we could spend just 5-10 minutes if you'd be interested at all.
I personally would be very interested in that. I mean,
Thank you,
I
John.
started out, on the ZBA. And it's an interest, and then I spent a lot of time on the planning board. And it's very different approaches. The ZBA is much more structured, I think. But it has a lot of power.
This is Tracy, and one of the reasons that we don't have a select board representative on the zoning board is because we're also part of the appeals process.
Yep.
So we can participate certainly in any operational issues that come with running the board, but we wouldn't want to be involved in any way, shape, or form with any case structure.
Right.
This is Kate. I think the other thing that's important is, and I hope maybe fellow board members do the same. I try to either read the minutes or I play you can play the YouTube in your car while you're driving and not see it. Which I like, so we're not watching the YouTube, but you can hear it, which is very helpful. Because if you have a nice long drive, so I catch up on a lot of the meetings by listening to them. And while I would welcome having you guys come in, I do every once in a while, I'm like, what is this project? Because there are some interesting ones you guys see that we never see. So I would love an occasional.
Board agree with that in general? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes,
I always watch it on the YouTube and read the minutes.
okay.
Okay, I'll work with Ed to see if there's a slot in it coming.
Yep, we can get you on the next.
Thank you. Ed?
All right. Staff report, we still have a vacancy on the police department. We did wash out all of our full-time applicants through the process already. But, we are continuing to work with a part-time police officer candidate that is certified and wants to help our department. So we'll continue working on that. And we're still taking applications. So if anybody knows of somebody that wants to be a police officer, please send them our way. The Memorial Day Parade is scheduled for May 26th with an 11 o'clock start time. Last time I reported probably a 10:30 start time, but it has been moved to 11. The lineup will begin at 10:30. Citizens Academy starts this week. We have 17 students and look forward to this first class that we have. So, pretty exciting to get that kicked off. The .gov project. I have recently received the audit from the .gov audit people. I will be getting that to you soon. We did about as well as I thought we would do. The recommendations coming from them are to move to the .gov platform. They did recommend that we upgrade some of our licenses of some of the higher risk people, such as myself and the police chief, to a higher Microsoft license. So I'm working with SimQuest on that right now to see what the final cost is, whether we can do everybody that I want to do right now, or if we need to budget some of those across the next couple of years. There is a little bit of grant money that comes with that, but not enough to cover the total cost of it. So we'll be looking at that. And then other than that, they just recommended me work with the select board to put a few different policies in place. But I will get you that report, and then we can work over the next year or two to put some of the things in place to up our cybersecurity awareness and readiness. Whitney Hall Public Safety Building. We finally got the staircases completed at Whitney Hall. There may be a little bit of details to do, but overall they're done. The elevator's up and running, as I have told you guys before. So we're moving on to minor punch list items and exterior work at Whitney Hall. We do need to work on setting a grand opening, which is getting very difficult now. We've been running dates and we're getting into that busy summer season. So it's looking like right now, depending on how soon you guys want to do it, we have like Father's Day weekend in mid-June or pushing to middle to later July. Something I'd like the select board to weigh in on and help determine. I don't know how many people you guys think will be going away for Father's Day weekend, but that's, if we wanted to try to get it done next month, that's about the only weekend we have.
Let's do it.
Wait, but if you do it in late July, you can wrap it up with Old Home Days.
It's honestly, the Old Home Days docket is so busy.
Yeah.
Cramming more stuff in is like, you feel like you're leapfrogging from one.
Yeah, I
list
think
to
we'd be looking more at the 12th to 19th timeframe in July.
July.
We were still thinking about a Saturday.
That's up to you guys. I think Saturdays work, but an evening would work as well.
So we were thinking about Saturday, June 14th.
Yes. No?
I thought it was a different month, I thought it was. That looks good.
That's Flag Day.
It's not a good time. It's not daytime.
I think I might not be available.
And I don't even have a game.
What was it? Were you looking at July too?
Yeah, July 12th or 19th. Or the other day.
I'm away on the 1st to the 14th. Would favor the second opportunity, but the first.
Alice and I are gone on the 12th.
The 19th.
We're leaving the country, so.
19th or 14th of June.
Hope you get back in.
I'm not sure we're coming back.
You may not have a choice.
We may be going to.
That's what we're gonna run into now that we're getting into summer.
Hopefully it's not
Well, let me find out about June 14. I don't think I'm available, but I'll try. I can see. It's probably not.
Yeah, and we can always change away from a Saturday if we don't, if we think a evening would be good.
I think the reason we did the Saturday was so children could be, included, wasn't it? And people weren't like rushing from work.
We just thought it would work better.
Okay.
I have nothing on June 7th.
Let's check it out.
I won't be here.
Sometimes you just have to miss something.
Okay.
No, I don't know. We keep looking. I don't know.
Can we maybe put a pin in the 14th?
Yeah.
Like pencil it in?
Yeah, we can do that.
Cause if we don't pencil it in, I'm gonna book something.
We can continue talking. Just wanted to start the conversation again as we're getting closer.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but we really ought to be thinking about the emergency services building at the same time,
No, they won't be ready till the end of summer, at least,
till the end of summer. So we're
Yeah.
talking after, post Labor Day type of thing?
probably before Labor Day, but August, late August,
It
September.
would be nice before people close up their camps in
Yeah.
town.
And then just to follow this up completely, we need to think about the August date that we will not be meeting. I read in the town newsletter that apparently it's selected for us.
Where?
What?
The town newsletter said we weren't meeting in one of the Mondays in August.
Was it in the newsletter?
Yes.
I don't know
Say,
where that would have been.
I read that to you guys in another manager's report.
We usually pick one
was in the
if we have a light enough agenda, we usually.
I didn't know.
I think we
I
discussed,
think it was probably based on something of availability from you folks.
I think we discussed it here once. I will be gone.
I think that's what it was based on. We hadn't discussed it yet, to be perfectly honest, no, but I assumed it was based on something that you had input. So we need to figure that out as well, and that affects things.
Will we be able to meet in Whitney Hall?
It'll be a while.
Oh. Why?
We have to get all the audio visual set up and it's been ordered, but it's not put in, so it'll probably be at least a few months.
Can you put a little more definition to that?
No. Not,
For the next meeting, can you put some more definition to that?
I can see it's, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts for them to get it done. They're not gonna give me a date of when they'll be done. Cause they're relying on Defiance Electric doing some work and some different people before they can get in and finish.
Perhaps for the next meeting, then you can come up with some definition as to when, and just, not just a nebulous out there.
I can ask, but
I assume there's things that are on order that are coming in
yeah.
and
they're
there's
not gonna know any of
contractors.
that.
And since
stuff.
Defiance does work for us, I think you could
Yeah, but it's
certainly
not
pin them
defined.
down.
Yeah, but it's not defined.
But it's
So
the
I can
step.
ask, but I can't guarantee that I can get you a date.
No, no guarantee. I'm just asking you to narrow up the speculation, if you would.
Is that it?
You're more on your report,
Yeah, I do.
like you're too red.
And then public safety building, we're still moving forward. It's slightly delayed with a couple of things, Comcast being delayed, some of those, but we're looking at taking ownership of the building in early June, around June 2nd, I think is the date we're shooting for right now. We are doing punch list walkthrough this week, so we'll be looking at the final details that they need to fix up, and that's getting really close. And then the police are very hard working to prepare for the move. In order to keep CGIS compliance, the police department will be moving themselves, so they're working hard right now to cull what's not needed and then getting ready to to make a fairly swift move over to get all their critical equipment in place. And then once the police are settled in, we will start to move fire and EMS into the building. Hopefully by middle to late June, everybody's moving in.
What is CJUX?
It's, you know what it's in? It's criminal.
Criminal justice information system, but it's just, that's part of it, but also, police best practices, right? We have to move all our evidence, we have to move all our computers so that nobody, 5 years down the road can say that there was some, chain of custody lost in a computer disk. And then all of a sudden that criminal case becomes a question of, well, what happened when you moved from Main Street to, $6 grand a place? We have to do it. We're doing it all, so we can say we moved it all so that there's no chain of custody issues at that moment.
I feel like I've seen that.
Makes sense.
It does. The older I get, the more I like the idea of a mover moving, but
Thanks, though.
we'll make it happen.
Yeah, it's just a little bit more of a logistical challenge than hiring someone to go move everything.
Are there any substantial issues in the building that will prohibit all the departments from moving in?
I don't know that there's anything substantial. There may be, found a little bit of a drywall finishing issue the other day that might take a little more time to fix than basic punch list stuff. But Neagley and Chase has been really good about getting subs in and out of there quickly. I would bet if we find anything, they'll have people there.
What's the status of the equipment needed for the fitness room?
We'd have to talk to the chief, but it's something that we're working on getting donated and purchased. That's not part of the budget. We will not be buying that with town funds.
I can answer it if you want. So our Police Benevolent Association went out and, so far we've gotten a $10,000 grant donation to outfit the, fitness room of the police department, of the public safety building. And we're also talking to our insurance company, maybe they can put a little bit more in there too, so. That's gone well. We've had a great response from the people in the community that we've talked to that, made the donation and stuff.
Do you have a budget that you think you need to outfit that room?
We'll make whatever we get work, and we'll just keep improving it as we go along. Just having that room is such a positive thing to everybody that we've talked to on the force and fire department and ambulance and stuff like that, and, even town employees, so.
Do we get workout privileges?
All town employees?
And how are we coming with your report?
Sorry.
We're a little over halfway.
Thank you, John.
Quick update, Crystal Lake Watershed Planning. I have submitted that pre-application, so we're in the system and we'll be waiting for a response. Just to let you guys know, I think I mentioned this once before, but we have moved forward with what we call Town Cloud software. That's a type of software, but they'll be providing us agenda management software and a 311 program. The 311 program is a user program for the community where they can use their cell phones to submit directly to DPW or whoever they're submitting to problems and issues across town. So this weekend, if we had flooding, you could click the little flooding thing on the app, take a picture and push the button and it'll go right to the person that needs to see it to know that go get it fixed. If it's emergency, please don't use the 311 app and call that. Potholes, lights out, those types of things that we get a lot of calls for. It'll make it a little bit easier. And then we've also found a way in-house to use it as a facilities work order program. So we have moved forward with those and you'll be seeing those soon. The agenda software will make it really easy for staff to upload packet documents and things. It'll take a lot of time off of Lisa's plates, having to build a lot of different packets and get information from different people. Plus, it'll allow the select board you can search anything that we get uploaded into that for the time moving forward. So if you're looking for something we talked about 6 months ago, 8 months ago, you can just search it and it'll take you to that portion of the packet. Should be really nice once we get it up and running, but it's something we're working on now. Hopefully within the next few weeks, it'll be up and running. Quick land use update. as Eric said, we've had a conceptual discussion with Laramie Farms, so that's continuing to move forward. Rob has been asked to present at the Mortgage Bankers and Brokers Association of New Hampshire's education meeting later in June. They're looking for knowledge on municipal government and specifically how things work at the planning and zoning realms. The relationship that we built with New Hampshire Housing got us that invite. So good job again on Rob to get around the state and let them know the things that Enfield are doing. And then we have a core team meeting this Thursday to prepare for the resilience building workshop on the 29th. So that's coming up soon and we're excited to get that moving. DPW really doesn't have a lot. They've been, moving into summer operations, the sewer infiltration projects continuing to move forward. As you guys know, the DPW crews have been busy replacing culverts and preparing for paving, especially on Lock Haven Road. And then we've just been continuing to grade roads and prepare for the spring season. I can say they've done a great job keeping the culverts cleaned out and the ditches cleaned out, which helped us not have much flooding this last weekend where a lot of other people did have problems. And then the water department will be flushing hydrants starting soon, so you should see that.
Did we have another break on Shaker?
No, we did not. I think Jim emailed you back, but they had dug up some valves and moved some. They just relocated and changed some things on some valves that they were having trouble getting to.
Yeah, I'm having trouble getting my email, I guess. It's Microsoft.
I emailed you Friday.
No, that's fine. I had to dig for my email, but that's not you guys. That's Microsoft conflict.
Thank you, Ed.
Can I just ask one question more to Ed? This is Kate. So on the back of the municipal facilities, both the library, town office and the public safety, when are we getting grass? I'm just concerned about this location with the stormwater that we got.
Public safety has grass. It's been hydro seeded except for the
Okay,
front when they were still grading.
I saw
some of
him
that.
raking, I'm getting ready for it. Okay,
And then the public safe or the Whitney Hall is supposed to be getting seeded next week.
okay, it's growing ugly.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next up, we have the hazard mitigation plan update. Chief? So, we renewed our hazard mitigation plan in 2022. We're supposed to do an annual review. I had some time and I was going through it and realized that we hadn't done one, since 2022. So I went through, I was actually stuck on a plane for 11 hours. So I took that time to read through the whole, plan again, and go through it. This annual review is for, major changes, for, if like the town were to experience a major event or, we had major changes to the town, adding, big structures, taking, demolishing big structures, stuff like that. The plan is completely renewed every 5 years. We're due to redo it in 2027. We don't have any, as of right now, we don't have any major changes to add to it. Obviously, next year when we do this again, we're obviously gonna have to change a few things with adding, a new building and stuff like that.
Right.
It's not the emergency operation plan, right? This is, the hazard mitigation plan is approximately 200 pages, a little more than 200 pages. About 175 of those 200 pages are all fall within what FEMA would like to see, how we document everything and kind of categorizes the town, where we fall in this and that. And then the biggest part about it is I feel the most benefit to the town is table 8.1, which is the potential mitigation actions items. That's where the team that put the plan together, recognize some stuff that we could do within the town of Enfield to mitigate hazards. And, and for most people, they think, you might not be able to stop, natural man-made or other hazards from happening in town, but there are things you can do to help mitigate so that we can bring the town back to functioning after. Happy to report that we are doing well going through that list. We haven't hit them all. You're not expected to hit them all in the 5 years. You're looking
100 years out into, into that plan, but we are, the prior plan, which expired actually in 2020 during COVID, that's why, had a couple extra years. We probably have checked off twice as much stuff already than we did in the previous plan. And some of the other things that are in this and are the town, Jim, was a big help in doing this. So everybody's on the same page, emergency management, DPW, the select board, everybody's kind of on the same page of where the town needs to be in our hazard mitigation. So I'm here to just say that the plan looks good and no major changes that we need to do this year. And, we'll be prepared in 2027 to renew we'll revisit this again next year. We'll have a few changes, obviously, because of the buildings that'll be coming online. They're not online yet. And, in 2027, we'll renew the whole thing again. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that hazard mitigation plan. And it's just for those who, don't know, our hazard mitigation plan is available on the Enfield website for anybody to take a look at. And we invite the public in 2027, when we renew it, we invite the public to come in and participate in the same. We actually go into the community, bring stakeholders in, business owners, people, just general, residents to take part in that process.
Thank you.
Where are the hard copies kept?
We don't keep hard copies anymore.
We don't even have one?
No, it's not an emergency operation
I
plan.
mean, I read it online, but, no, I know that also. You have one? Okay.
I have one just, but to be honest with you, it's just so I can mark it up. And when I find things,
Sure.
I'm a old school guy, so I highlight this and that, but in general, it's, we use it as a digital thing. A great example is the Potato Road grant that we applied for. We wouldn't even be able to apply for that grant if we hadn't included it in our hazard mitigation plan as something we might recognize in the future that could be a problem. So that's where and it by no means is it just me, it's a whole team, but, we recognized that back in, 2022 is, hey, we might want to do this in the future. And the first thing they asked when we applied for that grant was, is it in your hazard mitigation plan? Check yes. All right, keep moving
But it
forward.
looks really good today.
Since you're sitting there, I'll skip over to one other thing.
Sure.
As you know, plans get out of date and we forget them. The emergency operations plan was to be renewed last October as well.
We renewed it last year.
No, we wrote it in 23. We didn't renew it in 24.
It's adopted.
No, we adopted it. But we were to renew it last fall as well. In other words, last fall was actually a
We'll
year
review
old.
it.
Annual review.
Oh, annual review.
The annual review. It was actually a year old last fall. So we need to do that.
So we gotta do the same thing what we're doing right.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Good point.
Thank you very much.
No problem. You're the chair right now?
Yes.
You could just, sign that saying that we discussed it.
Oh, yes.
And I'll get on a future, want to do the same thing for the,
Yeah, the form's right in the back of the, online.
it is with both of these forms. Yeah. And
Okay.
it's one of those things you can easily overlook of just sitting here.
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
"Hey, let's talk about this. The EOP is a little more detailed.
For the, resilience committee, meeting on the 29th. Will you have a hard copy of it with you?
The EOP, I can get you one if you want.
I don't need it. I just want to have one there
Sure.
because there will be some discussion of it.
Okay.
I
And
think
it'll
if,
just be easier to do it by hard copy in the community building. Than not.
I'll get you that and the hazard mitigation plan, because that also references the
It does.
master plan.
It does, yeah.
Because you want both plans to revolve around your master plan.
If we had a hard copy of each one for that meeting, I don't want to keep it. I'm just saying for that meeting, it might be helpful because we may be referring to both
Okay.
during that day.
Not a problem. I'll get your copy.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna move from the next person up online. So.
For the parking ordinance
Yeah.
discussion? Oh, excellent. Go for it.
So this is step two of, what we talked about, we started the process a little bit, ago, was recognizing what direction Enfield wanted to go in our parking, right? We determined that Enfield doesn't have a parking problem. We have a lack of parking information problem. And, one of the things I pointed out in in that presentation is that our parking ordinance was dated like 1955. And then.
I couldn't even find it.
Yeah, it's because it's hidden part of it is hidden on the back of the DPW snow removal. And then there was And then there's a Skoma Beach parking one, and then there was something else. So I combined them all into one.
Good.
And it's written, I reached out to a bunch of different towns, got theirs, kind of compared, took what I thought was good, what applied to Enfield, what didn't apply to Enfield, based off of the conversation that we had, which I felt was the direction we wanted to move in Enfield, and it's written for Enfield now and what I believe Enfield in the future, but not overly abundantly like, dictating, the parking. I think this will go well. Couple things to explain. I have talked to Jim about the snow removal part. And he is fine with the way it's written. He's also fine with, one of the things that some towns are going to is they're doing away with dates, because we all know that it can snow in October and it can snow in May.
It's been done this week.
And so, exactly. And so he's fine with the idea of having the dates in there like we've had for a long time. Several towns are going away from dates and just making the winter snow, winter parking ban a statement that says that anytime that there's inclement weather, you can't park on the roads. And I guess I would leave that to the discretion of the select board on which way you want to, would you prefer to have the dates on there, which are in there now, or I can change it to, my thought and Jim's thought as well is that if we go to the no dates, when we redo our signage and we start going with like the QR code information and stuff like that, there is the application where somebody could go in and upload, which would take some on our part to go up and say, hey, when you scan the QR code and you go to park, it says no parking tonight because there's a potential storm, stuff like that. Or we can stick with the dates and then we don't have to worry about the outlying storms. And then the second one that I kind of wanted to
Hey, I can add to that. Some of the cities, I know Manchester was one of the big ones. There's a few other ones that did it. And what they started finding was, yes, we have a lot of storms during the winter time, but there's a lot of days and evenings that there are no storms and it allows for parking. And that's kind of why they moved in that direction, just to more open up parking when there's no winter storms during the winter instead of just banning for a certain time.
It's probably worth trying that method.
I like that method. In Boston, they
Give
just
it a
yank
try.
your car if you're dumb enough to leave it there when it starts snowing. They take your car and they take it to
I think
Dorchester.
we can try it and see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I like that approach, especially in November, we rarely have storms now. I mean, just on average, we have fewer. The one thing that we want to make sure to talk to Jim about is how much time they need before the storm to treat the roads. Because it may actually be that the day before the storm, you also can't park, so that they have access for the pre-treatments.
Right. And that's something I can work out with Jim. We put it out like,
It's
hey,
all workable.
yep,
I think,
exactly.
but that's a good approach, but it's, and then they need, of course, 24 hours after the storm or something to push some things back.
Well, that or anything
Whatever the right
else that
amount
we
is.
have in this, we're gonna, this won't be a 1 or 2 meeting thing to
Yeah.
get the parking ordinance
Yeah.
done. So it's something we can definitely
Yeah.
research and work
So
on.
whatever the right amount of time is DPW driven.
And then the other part I wanted to point out, which is a little bit different, is we talked about this in the last meeting about the overnight parking. And the kind of the consensus that I kind of took away from it is there was a little, why should we designate certain areas, overnight parking, or what was the reason, this and that? And so I put a thing in there that, which follows the current, thing is no overnight parking. Overnight parking is prohibited without prior authorization / permit to be issued by the Enfield Police Department. The idea that we had come up with is issuing, we would have cards, they were numbered cards that could be issued out at the station, but we also would like to go to the local businesses that serve and give them numbered cards that they could give to people to leave out there, so we know that, and they would be, a one-time use thing. So we could see if somebody was abusing them, but two, some of the residential parking in that area that we're trying to work on, not taking up the inappropriate areas, it would definitely bring that out a lot easier to, or a lot more efficiently to deal with. I don't want to say easier, but efficiently. So that's what I mean, and they're currently under permit. That would be the permit parking for somebody, and again, it would work both ways. Somebody could be at Kitchen 56. Maybe the bartender recognizes they've had a little too much to drink. They say, hey, I'm gonna get a ride home with so-and-so. They have the card that we already gave them. They have the number. They sign it, put the date on it. They throw it on their windshield. We recognize that that car wasn't abandoned and or illegally parked.
I think that sounds like a great plan. We want to encourage people to get other rides home.
Yep.
And this hope, it's a simple thing that we can do.
Okay.
Oh, it also allows for the longer term parking.
Right.
That you guys talked about, that someone could come down, work with the police department and they can issue you can park here from this time to this time.
I think that's where you could take advantage of that small area that's directly across from the church that's owned by the town. That could be designated for overnight parking. If someone came into town, for example, and they had a large RV, and they called you and they said, where the heck could we possibly put this thing for 2 days? We're visiting neighbors or whatever. That's a place where they could be given permission to park for 2 days.
Sure. Yeah, I'm also working with Jim on upgrading a couple of the other areas in town, but that's like, it's already on the block, but it's like step 4, after, so I'd like to get this ordinance, so I'd like to take back the suggestions that I've gotten from today, redo this, come back to the next select board meeting and put this on the agenda cause it's a town ordinance, so it has to go to the, 2 or 3 public hearings to replace the old, ordinances.
That many?
We can research it and make sure we.
No, it's at least 2. You have to go to public hearing, at least
Okay.
2, and then the select board can adopt it in place of the 1955, 1988, 1989.
The other thing, could we mention under parking on town property that we have issued permits in the past to park at Chacoma Beach?
Scone Beach is listed under there as potentially one of the permitted parking areas. So that would be, and it's listed that way in this ordinance so that the select board or the town manager or whoever the designee is can go back and forth with that, right? During COVID, that was one of, the previous 18 years that I was with the department, we hadn't really enforced it. During COVID, the select boards, came out and said, we'd really like to start enforcing that, during that time. And so it can go, it's purposely put under there that the select board at any time, right? It can change in the next 10 years.
I must be missing it because I don't see it.
The
So,
comment on the front page,
Did I miss it?
4.2.
yeah,
Thank you.
town may issue residential or special use permit for designated areas.
I did miss that. Thank you. I think it's good, good job.
I'll put it
Thank you.
together and bring it
Bring it
up to the next
Yeah.
one. Thank you.
Look forward to it. Next up, we have the Highway Safety Grant. 2026 acceptance.
We're switching police officers.
I'll be short and quick. Again, this year we applied for Luke Fry, CPP. Again, this year for fiscal year of 2026 for the state which starts in October, we applied for the Highway Safety Enforcement Grant Patrols, which gives us extra overtime money to do patrols for DUI enforcement, distracted driving, seatbelt enforcement. The total award granted by the department to the department was $6,900 this year.
This is Tracy. We did this last year as well, didn't we?
Yes,
And it was a similar amount?
yes, I think it's up $100 from last year.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's great.
We need to vote to accept this.
You do? Okay.
We do, and by name.
In specific language for motion.
After we voted.
Okay.
As far as I can tell. Because what it says is, the select board in a majority vote accepted the terms of the highway safety grant as presented in the amount of $6,900. We don't want to amend that.
Yeah.
I'll make that as the motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second.
If you could add and authorize the town manager or police chief Roy Holland to.
Yeah, it's the bottom of the highlight the bottom there for you. To add that as well.
Oh. Name and or title position, and authorize the police chief and or the town manager to sign all documents related to the grant.
I'll amend my motion to say that.
Yes, and can you include your name? They're very specific.
Town manager Ed Morris.
Town
Police chief Roy Holland.
Thank you.
Police Chief Roy Hall.
Are you done bedeviling me?
We just ran into this problem last year, so the state was very picky last year.
Okay, yeah, I believe it.
They seem like they have too much time on their hands.
They do. They do. They're always up to something down there in Concord. Okay. We need to vote. All of who approve,
We have to say our name.
name and I.
I'm Kate Plumley Stewart. Aye.
Tracy Young, aye.
John Kluge.
Eric Russell, I.
Alice Kennedy, I.
And that's it, right?
That's it.
I think so.
Thank you, Officer Fry.
You can keep that.
For that.
I get to keep this? Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you. Getting a little punchy at it. Okay, next up, the Solid Waste and Recycling Study Committee. Ooh, this is a good one.
So on the table and in your packet, there's a spreadsheet. We had approved last meeting that we, or a couple meetings ago, that we'd have 7 people on this committee. We had 6 applicants.
Mm-hmm,
So I didn't feel we needed to go to non-public to appoint the applicants.
mm-hmm.
I didn't see any reason not to appoint the 6 applicants that applied.
I'd make a motion to appoint the 6 applicants who are Jean Patton, Martha Dooley, Lindsay Smith, Peter Hurst, William Brown, and John Pellerin.
It's Tracy, I'll second that.
All in favor signify by saying name and I.
Oh, Kate Plumley Stewart, aye.
Tracy Young, aye.
John Kluge.
Eric Russell, I.
Alice Kennedy, I.
Thank you very much.
On a completely separate but completely related note, I have had not less than 5 or 6 people come to me and ask whose decision it was not to do the rehab pile at the transfer station this year. And what the rationale was for not doing it.
And look into it, I can see that it was not out there, but
There's 2 signs now on the fence that says not this year. And just people come to me and said, they loved it. They thought it was great.
They let
I'll
me
get a
go
rip-
bike.
And I frankly found it was terrific too, instead of finding car seats and bicycles and small pieces of furniture on people's lawns.
no, it's good. I knew it took a lot of staff time, but I'll get a
It-
report from Jim.
I think that is the issue,
Yeah,
is staff time, and people don't like to be supervised as to what they can leave there, and
they
that.
had a
that
lot
is
of problems with people leaving garbage.
Yeah.
Perfectly good.
Precise.
But we can do it. So let me look into.
So I would like us to tread cautiously. Those guys have a tough job.
Mhm. And we do have a number of wonderful nonprofits who do take actually good items.
Yeah.
So if it's too much staff time, we could post a list of places like Cover, Listen, that are other opportunities to upcycle and reuse.
Or have a list there that limits what you can leave, perhaps.
Like bicycles are a particularly good one.
I mean, I found it particularly helpful, and as I said, 5 or 6 people came to me, and they loved it. They thought it was great.
Listen, dump picking is the pastime.
All right. 439 Route 4 sewer connection requests. And we have a memo here from Jim Taylor.
I'm, no, go ahead.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Route 439, Route 4, has a need to connect to the sewer system and has requested to do so. We recommend that the select board allow it.
I had a question in that 439 US Route 4 includes both a mobile home and a residential structure. So are there 2 connections there or 1?
Don't know offhand. I'd have to get a connection, but I'm guessing it's 1 connection for both, but I'd have to look into that.
We did encounter when we were talking about the possibility of hooking Wilson Mobile Home Park up. That even though it was 1 connection, Lebanon wanted to assess us a fee for every single place. So just something to think about, because even if we aren't assessing it, Lebanon might whack us on the other side.
Yeah, even if it's a single connection,
Mhm.
it's all based on the number of bedrooms or office spaces or bathrooms, however they do it, and we work directly with Lebanon to put that fee onto the new connection, so it's not costing the town anything, it just gets passed on.
I think Jim can clarify it for you, I'm sure, whether that's one connection or two, and that affects the connection fee, of course.
I feel like this was supposed to be connected before anyway, so we'd be
It,
wise to
it
do it.
was supposed to be.
I would make a motion that we approve the connection of 439 US Route 4.
I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Signify your approval by saying aye in your name.
Tracy, I.
John Klug, aye.
Eric Russell, aye.
Alice Kennedy, I.
Kate Plumley Stewart, aye.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other properties on Route 4 that haven't been connected yet that were supposed to be?
We do have some that are wavered still.
So,
Are they really wavered though? Cause that was the sticking point. Cause we got told we weren't allowed to truly waiver them. But when they presented to town meeting back in the day and asked us to approve it, we were told we could. So I think there's two stories. Someone's gotta get that story straight and straighten it out.
And you guys do have authority to waive them.
Interesting. That's the opposite of what we got told. Remember, John?
Yeah,
We went through some serious pain on this.
it may be appropriate if,
Okay.
perhaps we get a review by DPW as to who was hooked up and who was not.
Yeah. We can
And
get
then
that
we
to
could
you.
just look at that and ask, how come?
I think we should take a look, because if
Yeah.
my memory is right, the last time I saw a list, there were several that were in the 2024 range that their waivers were supposed to expire.
Yeah, we can look at that. We
Yeah,
send it out to you
good
last year.
question.
We'll send it out again.
And also, right, property transfer was another thing that was supposed to.
Yeah.
Initiate hooking up, that's
Right.
right.
Yes. Good memory. All right.
Quick question about that. So the fee, is it like a one-time connection fee for Lebanon, or do they charge more for every person who signs up, hooks it and?
No, there's a sewer development charge, so it's new hookups to the system.
Is an ongoing fee or
No,
just one?
It's a one-time
Okay,
fee,
so
and then they'll
people
get
who-
charged their sewer use.
But that's in addition to the town one-time fee.
Right, but what I'm wondering, because I thought maybe there was an ongoing fee, which means that like when new people hook in, I thought it would like defray the cost a little bit. But it doesn't.
I mean, they get paid sewer charges after that, normal sewer charges like everybody else. So everybody that connects in does technically lower the rates, just not lower the
Like,
rates,
isn't
but they,
it something that sewer users as a group are paying off?
Yes, and they become
That's a separate.
payers on that. So we have a thing like the debt for that
Yeah,
is paid by all of the users. If we have 500 connections paying, it's divided by 500. If we have 600, it's divided by 600.
yeah.
They become one of that incremental number when they do that. The fee he's talking about is purely an upfront fee paid to connect for the past investments that people have made.
Okay.
You're basically buying into the
Right.
investment, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But then we also have the sewer deficit problem, which is another separate issue, which we're paying for.
But you don't pay for it separately.
no.
No, you wrap that right
that's-
into your bill.
No, I'm just saying, like, it
It's a lot.
It is good for people to.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It's very good for people to
Yeah,
join.
okay.
Join,
It
join.
is a reason to look forward to some development in town.
That's true.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have the Kluger Road poll license matter. All my fault.
You need to abstain.
So this is in front of you, the limited information you got, but,
Yeah.
it really, I'll let John explain it.
Yeah,
It's like one pole on our
There's
code.
one pole on Kluger Road that needs to be moved, essentially. And, it belonged to Consolidated, but Liberty's doing the work. I had to, and this is included also, give an easement over my land to get power from them. This all happening because my underground has been failing for 10 years. And the power company said if it goes again, that's it, there's nothing we can do. So I decided I wanted wire in the sky that they have to take care of forever. So that's it. That's the story.
And just for the board, this would have been an administrative item normally, but since Don Klug is the person on it, I thought it was worthwhile to have a discussion. And it's like,
And there's a form here, I guess.
Do you want a motion from the rest of us, just so that it's very fair? to-
yeah, that is
Okay.
approved.
I would make a motion that we as a board, grant the petition and pull license, to Granite State Electric Company doing business as Liberty Utilities and Consolidated Communications, for the poll at Klug Road 15-50. And authorize the town manager or their designee to sign any documents
That may be necessary.
that may be necessary. Okay.
Very nice. Thank you.
Very good. This is Tracy, second.
All right, beginning with Kate. Vote and name.
Yes.
Tracy, yes.
John, yes.
Eric, yes.
Alex, yeah, you're gonna abstain because it's you.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I should.
Ignore my yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Finance policy review.
So this is back in front of you. I went through every one of them. I do want to review the investment policy a little bit more, but I wanted to bring it back in front of you with some changes and updates. Probably the biggest one was the post-issuance tax bond policy. After reviewing that a little deeper, I agree with Tracy and learning a little bit more about that. We had lost the title Exhibit A anyway in the last policy, but the Exhibit A was the portion after the resolution, which was actually written by bond counsel. So upon learning that, I decided to pretty much add it all back in. I left the little first part out that was kind of a purpose statement because we put it in a purpose statement, but I left the rest of it in and I left it in word for word. There may be a few formatting issues in it. I was reformatting it a little from what she had because it didn't transfer into this Word document very well. But I will go back through that and look at it. The other thing I did not do was move the sections around as we had discussed in the last meeting, but wanted to get the wording substantively complete, and then we can work on just reorganizing them to make sure they look the same. So just wanted to bring this back before you for discussion. In most of the other policies, there was some small changes. Most of them were, I would consider unsubstantial, but I did change some things. One was talking about reserves, and it has said cash reserves in the one before, so I put cash in, but we don't have any other reserves besides cash reserves, so it was kind of implied, but just some minor changes like that through some of the other ones that if something seemed a little more descriptive than was in there, I tried to add them back in.
I had this is Tracy, I had only a couple of comments, fortunately. Under budgeting and funding of the capital reserve policy,
Page number?
page numbers, not numbers. How about
They're-
Roman numeral 5?
They're definitely, they're number.
Oh,
You look at the back.
I'm going back to the original.
Oh, I use the computer, so it has numbers.
Okay. So, Roman numeral 5, budgeting and funding under capital reserve policy. Item number 2,
Oh,
use of undesignated fund balance. It's said, and this was, as you had written it before, so this is a second correction, forgive me, from something I didn't catch the first time. It says, when feasible, annual capital reserve appropriations shall be funded from available undesignated fund balance to reduce the impact on the tax rate, general fund, or user fees, water and sewer funds. I'd like to eliminate the words when feasible and instead say annual capital reserve appropriations may be funded from available undesignated fund balance to reduce the impact on the tax rate, general fund, or user fees. If you say when feasible, it takes the discretion out of it.
And where was that at?
Line number 2, under Roman numeral 5, page 5.
Page 5.
Yeah, it's right in the yellow part. I don't like that.
Which one?
What you said.
Okay.
I am not comfortable with, I am ready to die on the hill of not taking things out of undesignated whenever possible, because we went fishing in it last year. We had massive regrets during budget season. We knew we were gonna have regrets. The regrets hurt more. I think the feasibility needs to be studied. Maybe a reference to our policy on undesignated funds there and getting it incorporated somehow there, but I don't think May is too general for me.
What do you think about something like when necessary?
Yeah, I like that better because it's even stronger, like.
I'm just trying to preserve
The
the
negative.
level of discretion, but,
Yeah, well,
and not impose it on future boards necessarily.
I mean, we have a policy that is imposed until such time the policy changes.
Personally, I think when necessary might be too strong in our current situation. I think it works. If we get closer to the cap, I guess necessary could, if you're going over the policy.
Yeah.
That needs some work, but.
Dr. Buffet?
I mean, you have the authority anyway to override the policy. Have you just said it's not, the policy is not to use the unassigned fund balance. And then, period, and then to override it when it becomes truly necessary.
I guess what I'm trying to do, and yours is a good point. I'm just trying to avoid someone remembering, oh, that's right, we're violating the budgeting and funding section of the capital reserve policy as we do this. In other words, creating a bit of a conflict, if you will, in the language as someone in the future considers using unfunded balance. And then they have to remember, but it is against town policy to do so.
I would not write it to be against policy and you're gonna do it anyway and plan on that. I would be using some sort of words like when necessary or strategically.
I would agree with that. The word that comes to mind that would dictate it would be shall be funded. That's a dictate. So if that could be softened, that's the point.
I mean, honestly, that's a discussion though. This document would guide us, but also it really guides the budget committee. And I think maybe this is a conversation we should be having the budget committee too, about how to appropriately word this. So it's a good tool for both of our boards. I think right now, the makeup of both boards is very careful. I think people put a lot of consideration into it. So some kind of wording that implies full fiscal consideration without binding us one way or another.
Would it be helpful to refer to the undesignated fund balance policy?
That's what I was thinking.
Might be that simple in this part. Just
Yeah,
refer it.
It's just refer it to the unfunded.
Yep.
Use of
Fund balance
shall,
It's a fund balance.
shall comply with.
good suggestion.
I like it.
Okay.
Rather than trying to restate something
then-
and then forget it some other time, yeah.
Exactly. And that's fine. Quick point on number 4. I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we have walked away from the idea of quarterly reports from the trustees of trust funds.
I put in there that we should get annual reports from them. It doesn't change much on a quarter to quarter basis. So, I mean, it's extra work for them and you're really not seeing any changes. I mean, they add money as it comes in, but they pull money usually once a year. We can do it twice a year normally, but so I think a more substantial annual report than they've been giving for the town report is.
Then I'll jump ahead to a reference in a different policy that says they can have up to 60 days at the end of the fiscal year to prepare that report. It would be nice if they had to prepare it in time for the town report.
That would be.
Yeah.
There is certain reporting that they do
Yeah,
have
they
to get
do
done for the town
provide that
report.
every year.
What you've seen in the report, is the new format that they've.
So the reference, perhaps we can do something about the 60 days that's listed under their obligations and bump that up a little bit. So that it doesn't conflict with what they're doing anyway for the town report. Because if one thing says, get it for the town report, and another thing says you have 60 days, it doesn't work.
There's also, the trustees of trust funds have their own rules.
Oh, I
So
know,
I know that
yes.
there is another, I don't know all the details off the top of my head, but they have another deadline that they have to meet that is after we need it for the town report, because we need it in time to get things printed. But
Right.
they have a different deadline in their rules, so, I think that's where that 60 days probably
So
originates.
maybe that could just be looked at to see
And I
if
think
those
that's in the
things.
investment policy.
It is in the investment policy, and
We're
if
gonna
those
review
things can
that
be
deeper and
sort
I'm
of
gonna get them involved. in
meshed a little
treasurer
bit
involved
so
with
that we, yeah.
Did we end up with a third trustee?
And then my only third point on budget and funding under Roman numeral 6, item number 1. It says funds may be used to pay for capital assets or services directly pay as you go. Well, services directly pay as you go are not a capital asset. By the definition of what we have said.
I mean, that's like when we wanna buy a cruiser and we decide we're gonna pay cash.
No, this specifically says services
It says pay for capital assets or services.
or services. So if services are included under the use of capital reserves, that isn't appropriate, I don't think.
So there might be the cemetery capital reserve fund that they might use to hire somebody to do something for them.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah, it's not just CIP.
Take down a tree.
Or lay down gravel, we've had that.
Or survey.
It's all capital reserves.
Those are all reserves.
Okay. You got me.
David?
Just a previous item, a thought that it may not have occurred is that the deliberative session will be, less than 60 days after the end of the year.
You'll
The
need 20
deliberative session, yes,
you'll need-
but the town report may not be ready for the deliberative session.
Yeah,
Well,
necessarily.
those figures
Well,
probably
is that
know
the plan?
It comes right after that.
have to be.
Yeah,
And you deliberate and then the town report comes out with the final.
yeah,
But the
yeah.
figures,
So the town report will not be available for the deliberative session.
no, but
The numbers need to be
probably
available.
Need to be there.
That's what it's pointing.
That's a pretty fast timeline.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much, yeah. I did like the debt ratios correction you made under,
Well, that's something
The
we
management
definitely need
policy.
to talk about. I like the first one.
yeah, I saw that.
I don't like the other two, and I don't know that they're really necessary.
I don't think they're necessary. I think there's some redundancy there.
You know, state law says 3%. I think the 0.04 was written when we were having big financial problems.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably at the time to pull back and do what we need to do.
It
Nine.
is 9.
1.5% puts us right in the line where we're okay still, but I think 1% should be more of our goal. We know we just added those 2 building projects, so we're gonna have that for quite some time, but you know, I think we need to be really cognizant and careful with that as well, not to accumulate a lot more
Yeah.
debt than we.
Oh, that makes sense.
Those numbers seem to make sense to me, but I wanted to talk with the select board and then talk about those last 2. I mean, really what I thought, if we're gonna do something on those last 2 to work, we're really just kind of winging numbers that fits what we're doing.
Right. Yeah.
So where it says we should have a goal, we should reword that to the goal, right? So there's a,
Yeah, I didn't write this in.
No, I know.
Format, I just threw some numbers out so
Yep.
you guys could see it.
yep, and I think, you know, back in the day, like you said, we had some serious financial issues and we clamped down pretty hard to try to rope them in, but at that point, we weren't looking at 2 building projects. Like they were kind of an out in the ether idea, but they were not on the books, so.
Okay,
I have a
think that's
question.
Alice?
Does total indebtedness per capita make sense?
That's one of the things that would be eliminated
Yeah.
as redundant.
Yeah, I didn't change those really at all. I started looking
They
at
were
them.
part of the original
They were part
policy.
of the original and they're now
Yeah.
out of date.
I think it's a small.
So eliminating them, I think would clean things up, as you say, those two
Yeah.
lines.
Mhm.
Especially like, we can't really dictate a percentage because town meeting
No.
votes on debt.
That's right.
So it's not like a
The
policy.
other thing is, it per capita, per what capita, per the,
What time of year?
well, no, I mean, we have no way because the census is basically garbage because they didn't capture the actual people who were here. I'm not trying to be mean, it just is, the timing of the census was terrible and we accumulated a lot more people. So how do you quantify that number? I don't think we have a good way to do it. Just don't think it's an
I
exercise,
mean, you'd have to use census data. But
which is wrong. Yeah, I think it locks us into an exercise that's not a good
yeah, I
exercise.
read through those a little bit and really tried to put a little bit of thought into it and I didn't see where the coordination really made much of a difference.
What about, so, because it has net assessed valuation, but should we also as a board, and maybe this doesn't belong in policy, but I think a lot about debt to equity. I mean, we do have net assets. Should we be comparing our indebtedness to our net assets as they've, because we depreciate them? And we just looked at, you know, the depreciation with Tim a little bit earlier. Should we be thinking about that and what our debt to equity, or it's, I know it's not, but like our debt to our net assets is, just tossing that out. I ran a calculator on it for my interest, simply because I was curious, because it's something you would do as a company to say, you know, where are we at? We're not gonna be selling any of these things like a company might do, but it's still an interesting thing to keep your eye on.
How do you characterize net assets?
It's, I mean, it would be it'd have to be the audited number. Because. Yeah, because they depreciate each year. So we have, you know, our new building is assigned a number and then they depreciate them over, what is it, 50 to 100 years or 51 to 100 years? Or whatever.
Depends what audit it is.
Whatever, it says, I know it said in the audit which category got what form of depreciation. I don't remember which number was which, but I think you'd have to, it might be a good exercise for
They
us.
never let us fully depreciate it, even if they're fully depreciated.
that
They
one.
make us add stuff back in.
Right, well, I mean, you do a certain amount of maintenance and things that I think appropriately add back. Yeah,
We were just talking about it today. Our last auditors had a whole different schedule to depreciate than our auditors we have now. And it changed a lot, but it may be something worth looking at.
I mean, it's very different to depreciate a building that's a town building than it is to depreciate a car or a refrigerator.
Or a water system or sewer system.
Right,
that's 100 years old.
Right.
Under the fraud policy. I just wanted to put to rest the suggestion that I had made under Roman numeral 4, investigation responsibilities. And I had made the suggestion that reporting of fraud to the town would be protected by anonymity. But if no one wants that, then I will put that suggestion to rest.
Yeah, I don't know that we're allowed to do that. I mean, there are some certain protections under certain things, but there's other things that have to be disclosed. So I don't know that that's good to write into a policy.
Okay.
I mean, we definitely try to keep things as non-public as possible if they're involving employees and people, but you know, disclosing to the board, some of those things we have to do, and then there's other times that we have to disclose it.
I mean, the police department has very specific laws they have to follow.
Yeah, and we have HR laws we have to follow. I don't know that we
Fair enough.
need to put it in a policy.
Okay. On the next page, Roman numeral 7, item number 5. It says theft of any asset. I made the suggestion theft or unauthorized use of any town asset.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that. That's in the personnel policy, and that wouldn't
Okay.
be considered part of the fraud policy.
Okay, that's fine.
Mhm.
Thank you.
But also number 6, so destruction, removal, or misuse of town property or.
Yeah, it does, and I didn't know whether it belonged under map 5, but that's fine, your explanation's fine. And then, I think, I'm done. Oh, under, oh, for your notes, under investment policy. And number B, which says certificates of deposit from banks incorporated under New Hampshire or federal law and located in New Hampshire,
Roman numeral 4B, is
Roman numeral,
that what you're saying?
well,
Yes.
yes, Roman numeral 4, B, number 5. Is it necessary that deposits of banks incorporated under New Hampshire and federal law be located in New Hampshire? We now have banks who are no longer located in this state, but we use them.
I think it's good policy to do it, but
So we're insisting that anything we invest in has to have a branch
in New Hampshire.
in New Hampshire. We,
I
Insist on that?
really, honest to God, like to know that if we have to go burn someone's building down, I'm sorry,
We do.
the old fashioned way and be like, give us our money that we can go to somebody and hold them accountable.
okay,
I don't wanna have to wander to Holland.
The legislature's been debating this a lot.
I know. So then, along those same lines, do we now insert a line that said there will be no investment in cyber funds or Bitcoin?
But those aren't authorized.
And they're not in New Hampshire, and it was just entertained by the legislature, who was simply put it on the back burner for a, no, they didn't pass
They
it.
didn't?
They didn't pass it. It's been deferred, but only deferred
I'm
until the fall.
gonna agree with Kate on this one. This is a list of authorized investments, and if it's not in there, then it's not authorized.
Okay.
Okay.
So for the moment, when the state comes back to us and says they want all the money that they're gonna take from the New Hampshire Investment Bank that we have provided to them and shove it into Bitcoin, we're gonna let that happen.
We will not be investing.
We will if it goes to the New Hampshire Investment Bank.
Well, the bank in New Hampshire, it's not the New Hampshire investment.
Well, what do they call the general investment, state investment pool?
We'll have to start keeping our money under the town mattress.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Then I'll skip right on to a practical matter, which isn't necessarily the policy.
Can we stay there for just a second, though?
Oh,
Back
I'm
to the
sorry.
Discussion
You bet.
that, the point you brought up, which is that they're not authorized because they're not in here. Do we add the language that says anything that is not expressly put in this policy is forbidden, or whatever we used for the fraud one?
It says investments are limited to the following instruments. I was being redundant, I know, but
No, I
think
didn't
it's-
know if we.
I think it's implied. We
Okay,
can
I'm fine with that.
clarify it if you want, but
That's fine.
I think that line he read, investments are limited to
Mhm.
the following.
just the way Concord's going. Anyway, not a policy item, but a reminder once again, under, Roman numeral 6, duties of the trustees of trust funds, we still don't have a 3-member board.
Anybody wants to
You
volunteer?
know anybody? Dan,
Have we heard,
Chance in life.
have we heard from,
We have not.
okay, so we don't know that he turned it down necessarily.
We have, no, he talked to us once and he was leaning towards accepting and haven't heard back, so.
We need to have a 3-member board.
inscription not going well.
No, yeah. Under the purchasing policy. Purchases of $10,000 or more. Makes no mention of them being discussed with CIP.
We had this discussion last.
Yeah, not all of them will be.
Okay. So we won't make a point of that. We'll just,
No, I don't think it belonged in a purchasing policy.
Okay.
I believe it would belong with CIP. Anything that was a actual capital purchase would need to go through them.
okay. Fair enough. That's all I have. I thought your municipal credit card policy was pretty good.
Any other comments from the board?
I'm just here for the realignments piece, which we don't need to discuss ad nauseam.
If we're good with that, we'll make those few changes. I'll look into the investment
Yeah, yeah.
policy. We'll start to reform that. It may be a few meetings before you get it back.
You bet.
We need to vote on the property tax abatements. And they all passed the test of qualifying?
Well, they were reviewed by Norm.
Yes.
Can we make a motion that we accept Norm's evaluations of each of these abatements?
I
And
don't
move
know if they
forward?
need to do them individually.
I mean,
They can do them as a slate.
Can we just do it as a slate and say we agree with the assessments of our assessor in each case as presented?
Presented tonight.
Go ahead and make that motion.
I move that we accept each of these reassessment abatements as indicated by our town assessor.
And I guess we have to name them.
Do we have to name them?
Do
I
we?
would.
Yeah.
By address or person?
I would just do the last names.
Just
Yeah,
do the last name.
last names.
Deary. Mirsky.
Earlier.
That's
Mirsky also. Courier,
It's on your agenda.
Kapler. LaCroy. O'Donnell, O'Connell, excuse me.
That's it.
That's it.
That's is all.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor signify with name and I.
Kate Conley Stewart.
Who seconded?
Anybody want a second?
Oh, second,
I'll second.
Eric?
Thank you.
Tracy, I.
John Klug, aye.
Eric Russell, aye.
Alice Kennedy, I.
It passes unanimously.
And once again, I think Norm did a good job of evaluating each of them.
I guess I really like this worksheet.
Yeah. It's very good. It explained exactly what we needed to reevaluate. It was very good.
Other administrative item is nomination form for Mascoma River Local Advisory Committee for Alvestadt. Appointment previously voted, so we don't need to do
You
anything.
just need to sign the form that's in this folder here.
No,
Okey-dokey.
well,
Sounds like a plan.
okay, folks, we're down to public comments. Thank you. Thank you for coming and for staying to the end.
Yes. Wouldn't miss it. It's my life.
Yeah, all right. So there we go.
Anything else we met with? I was gonna ask the board if they were interested in allowing Ed to write a note to the editorial page of the Valley News regarding the school funding letter that we approved from the last meeting, and it's mentioned in this packet. And the letter, which thanks us for supporting the effort, makes that suggestion that it be publicized.
It's not that I'm against the idea of it, it's that we have so much work on our plates. I don't know if I don't know if the publication of another letter to the editor will aid the cause, I guess. When Ed has so much on his plate, but you can certainly speak for yourself.
No, I just feel that it's something to support, and I don't mind being publicly known about it. Whether it's identified as the Board of Enfield or whatever, but that's up to what the board thinks.
I've been personally chipping into this cause for a long time and following it and going to those meetings. And I think we would all be smart if we feel strongly about it to do that, because having individual backing is, I think, more powerful, in my opinion, than a letter.
Yeah, I would agree with Kate. I have no problem writing if the select board wants to, but Have a lot of stuff to get done.
I will say, one of the things they do is they always have a very ambitious rollout plan and follow-up. It's something they do very well as an organization, so. I won't be the first time they ask for another.
No, we've gotten quite a few of them. I used to. sign on
Sometimes
to
I
it
do,
at Claremont.
sometimes I do.
Guess that one doesn't need another signature.
It's all
One
one
of the
tag.
items only has room for three.
We lost the tag.
You want more than three?
We don't need more than three.
I should just pass it down. Me with the lungs, I guess.
While we're doing this. And we're losing Whitney Banker, which is a loss, no question about it. Is there software which can be used?
Yes and no. It doesn't work good. The new agenda software we do have, are putting in place does have a minute taker piece to it, which will be something that could help the next person, but I would not want to rely on it.
You know, based on my experience at work with the Microsoft auto generated notes, it's not gonna serve the purpose that we have.
Because sometimes you have polar bears randomly walking through your notes and you're like, I don't remember being in the Arctic Circle during this meeting, but I think it's nice. I can tell you guys that I speak too fast for most automation software and get some really interesting words.
And for the good automated software, it's not only is the software expensive, but you have to have like microphones designated per person, so it knows who's speaking, all that kind of stuff.
I was wondering how that had
It
to work.
gets very difficult and very expensive.
I didn't know if the voice recognition was sophisticated enough in the software to separate out
But the new
names.
agenda software is actually, it's really simple, but it's very robust. And it can pull out of the packet and stuff, some information, some of the motions, those types of things, and put them in place. It also, I mean, it has a lot of really neat features that can be used for that and other items.
Well, then I would like to make a point of, as we close out this meeting, of thanking Whitney Banker for her excellent work.
Figured with
And-
something more formal.
Yeah, but as a board, I want to make sure that we make a motion to thank her significantly for the work that she has provided to this board and others in the recent years. I think it's been terrific.
Are we under other business?
Yeah,
I just want to ask for non-public scheduling so we can talk about the components of the audit that probably are appropriate for public. Fit to the next meeting.
The ones that only had four, we only needed four.
Always scribble your name under.
Only four? I don't, I'm surprised.
There's some of the, it's the assessor ones, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's.
yeah.
fine.
So-
We need a majority of the
yeah,
vote,
it's a
so
forum.
3 or more.
Yeah, I gotta get in the habit of passing this down, so I don't worry.
You can skip them all.
This.
I mean, it's not bad being last then.
Okay. I make a motion to achieve.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not. saying it.
Oh, my.
What was the conclusion on the non-public session? You
No,
will set it up for the next